Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am your host, Aaron Moody, here on behalf of Orlando Insight Group. Each episode, we dive into real conversations with technology leaders, innovators, and experts who are shaping the future of IT, data, and cybersecurity. Our goal is simple to give you practical insights, real world strategies, and expert perspectives that you can use to drive smarter decisions and stronger results for your business. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Today, I am excited to welcome Sadie St. Lawrence to our show. Sadie is the founder and CEO of Human Machine Collaboration Institute, or HMCI. HMCI pioneers research and education to optimize human and machine interaction in the new era of knowledge work with AI, serving leading public and private organizations. Prior to HMCI, she founded Women in Data, which is a nonprofit organization with representation in 55 countries and a community of over 70,000 data professionals. Women in Data earned recognition as a top 50 leading nonprofit and the foremost community for women in AI and tech in 2021. She's also super educated and has 3 degrees, one in piano performance, one in psychology, and one in data science, which is super impressive. And her journey from neuroscience research to over a decade in data science and AI strategy showcases her diverse expertise. She has a number of accolades, and in addition to all of that accomplishment, she also extends her leadership to a role on the White House Council for Equitable Data and AI Training and educating over 700,000 individuals through her data science and AI courses at UC Davis, Coursera, and LinkedIn Learning. So, Sadie, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we are going to learn a ton from you. So, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to chat with us for a few.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Erin.
Of course. All right, so we will jump right into it. So I wanted to start with a kind of a basic question that I'm always interested in, which is when I see people transition from one type of work to another, kind of what prompted that. So you moved from neuroscience to data science. And I was just curious what prompted that and what kind of drew you to make that change.
Yeah, it's somewhat like an optimization problem, which is I'm always trying to optimize the side of my role in which I enjoy what I'm doing, right? In which I
Right.
love what I'm doing. And so for that, it really came down to I was working in the basement of a lab and, it was a Friday and had to euthanize a bunch of rodents. I was like, I don't really like this part of my job. So I went home and on a sheet of paper, I wrote a kind of a line in the middle, said parts that I love about my job and parts I don't love. And all the parts I loved were the analysis, using the scientific method, doing research, and that's what really led me to find the term data science because I took that list of things that I loved and I put it into Google and I was like, what jobs can I do with these things? Less of
Nice.
the killing rodent part. And so, I say my first trusted advisor before ChatGPT was Google. And it tells
Right.
you how old I am, right? But more importantly, really taking that approach of like, how do I keep and increase what I love doing and decrease what I don't love doing?
Oh, I love that. I think that probably resonates with a lot of people. Yes, I think that, a lot of us just kind of get that first job out of college and just kind of move up the ladder and just maybe aren't super happy, but don't really take the time, like you said, like literally just sit down. What do I like? What do I not like? Maybe there is something out there that I can be doing that would light me up a little bit more. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So the next question I wanted to ask was you've worked with a lot of leaders. Obviously, you see kind of the good, the bad, the ugly. What, in your experience, are the qualities that make someone an effective leader, particularly with all of the change that we're seeing pretty rapidly with the tech space?
Yeah, so I think there's a big difference between being a leader and being a people manager. And
Right. Mhm.
oftentimes these get confused, right? So most people believe that to be a leader, A, you have to have an org chart of people underneath you, or B, that, you know, being a leader is having only having people like follow you. And I
Right.
think that's a big difference in terms of leadership versus people manager. Having people that report to you is a people manager.
Mhm.
Being a leader is really more about I'm able to go into the unknown. I'm able to forge a way. I'm able to have vision. I'm able to cast that vision. And once I cast that vision, then oftentimes people will follow. But it doesn't mean that I have to manage people or that people have to report to me. And I share that because I think for individuals, particularly younger in their career, they think that they have to have people reporting them to be a
Mhm.
leader. But the reality is, anyone can cast a vision and have people that come along and follow them. And so, how do you be a really effective leader in a changing technology space? That's going to be being right with your vision, right? With your vision of, hey, I know where the ball's headed, and I'm able to cast that vision. I'm able to tell people this is what's going to happen, or this is where you should run to because this is where the ball is headed. And you end up
Mhm.
being right. And what happens is then once you're right, more people will follow you, will listen to you, and your audience will grow because of that. And how you become right is really doing a lot of research, a lot of reading, tons and tons of study. And I am always consuming information. I'm always updating my model. And this is really because if I want to predict the future, I have to have that historical reference as well. So for
Right.
me, being a leader in a ever-changing technology space is being able to cast that vision and be correct and be right about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have worked with a lot of people who are quote unquote the manager leaders that definitely don't have the vision that you're talking about. So I love that, and I think there's a lot of opportunity right now because there's so much change. If
Mhm.
you are maybe earlier on in your career, the playing field might be a little bit more level, at least when it comes to those new and emerging technologies, because we're all learning it together. So, like you said, putting in the research and that effort, and then having the courage to share those visions and show them all how smart you are at the end of the day when you're proven right. Awesome. Kind of along those lines, if there's someone listening who is maybe looking to break into the AI field but aren't sure where to start, do you have any advice on what they might be able to do?
Yeah, so I would say really figure out what problem you want to solve. You can definitely get into the field because it's cool, because you can make more money. I don't judge anybody for those things, but still figure out what problem it is you want to solve because that's going to help you with your study and your self-study. I mean, that's going to help you determine if you want to do self-study or if you want to get a master's degree. And then if you want to get a master's degree, where do you go? And what does that
Right.
school specialize in? So really understanding what is that problem you want to solve is probably the most important question you can answer and ask yourself when trying to get into this field.
I like that. Having that clarity on where you're going and not just signing up for any college degree with AI, because like everything else, I'm sure some are fantastic and on the cutting edge and some not so much. So yeah, definitely having that um, plan to know where you're headed. Awesome. So in terms of AI, a lot of us are worried about the future of work, our jobs going away. There's a lot of, I think, uncertainty and nervousness around it. With you being an expert in AI and dealing with it day in and day out, in your opinion, how do you see AI reshaping skills that we need to have over the next decade to stay employable?
Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot about this, and to be honest with you, my mindset changes on this frequently, but the one thing that doesn't change is the idea of moving from the role of a musician to a conductor, or as I like to refer to it, becoming an AI orchestrator. And so, what I see more and more is that with the use of AI, we have this incredible intelligence of, we can think of it as like a person with like 120 IQ in our pocket and accessible to us at
Right.
any time to answer our question. And so we don't have to play the role of the violinist or the oboe player. We can allow AI to be all of the musicians. And what we do is we get to conduct. And what I see people their misconception with this is that, as AI does more of the doing and we do more of the telling, we don't need to know that subject. And that couldn't be further from the truth. To be a true orchestrator and to be a true conductor, you have to know all of the parts. You have to know all
Right.
of the orchestra. You have to be able to read sheets of music that are many instruments at once. And so, what I see is individuals who are going to thrive in this age are going to be those who have deep domain expertise, are very passionate about a particular problem or subject. And then they
Mm.
leverage AI to be able to orchestrate and to be able to conduct. And so that's what I would encourage individuals to do is make sure you're still studying, make sure you're still learning about a particular domain or a particular problem you want to solve, and then utilize AI as that method to help you achieve or solve that problem.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Coming at it, like we still have to have the skills, but understanding that AI can be part of it, not all of it. And it still makes mistakes, right? So you have to have that foundational knowledge to know, okay, is this right or do I need to tweak it? Yeah. Okay, cool. Um, Kind of along those same lines, what your opinion do you see when you're working with people are the biggest misconceptions that people have about working with AI and with data in particular?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest misconceptions when working with AI, I'll say AI first and then data second, which is a lot of the misconceptions I see people have is models that were like a year ago and aren't up to date on how good they are, what's changed, what are the different security and compliance. I talk to people in meetings a lot of times and they're like, oh, they're stealing all your data and they're using all your data. And that's not necessarily true. Like there's settings that you can go in and change and say, hey, I don't want you to use my data to retrain models. And so a lot of
Right.
people just have like old news is what I would say. And they
Okay.
haven't
Yep.
updated with the new things that are actually true or how these models work. So that's again, I would say, like every 3 months, go and test your assumptions and see if they're still true because a lot of times they've changed. In terms of mistakes that people make with using data, a lot of times we use data to confirm our own biases. And so I
Mm.
think that's one of the issues with data is we don't get the whole picture. And so we have to be really careful about how we're using it and whether or not it confirms our own biases or we're really truly looking at the whole picture.
Interesting. Any tips on what we could do to maybe get out of our own biases and make sure that we're considering other angles?
Yeah, what I would say is from that endpoint is really getting feedback from other people. So, having other people review and having other people look at it, I think is going to be really key, just to
Okay.
get new perspectives.
Yeah, that makes sense. Asking around so it's not just you looking at it and saying, "Oh yeah, that's what I thought. I'm good." Like asking for other people. I mean, that could be said for just about anything, right? Any decision making that we're doing. It's always good to have some other inputs. Cool. So with AI, we've talked about some of the wariness around it, but there's also a ton of good and some potential for positive impact. What are you most excited about when it comes to AI and the potential for positive things?
Yeah, I think I'm really most excited about what it can do in education and who it can help from an education front. Um, I think we all have had teachers in our lives who have really impacted us and changed who we are. And the fact that we have the opportunity to have a personalized tutor, an ever patient and ever kind of instructor, I think is really inspiring. And so for me, I'm most excited about like the education side and just like who we can provide access to that has yet to receive access.
Yeah, that's a good point because the access is a barrier for some people. I know that there's some AI tools that are free, but a lot you have to pay for. So helping students and maybe people that don't have the means, how do we get them access so they're learning along with everyone else and not falling further behind? That's huge. Okay. Um, what about in terms of organizations, like pretty much every company right now is looking at AI and trying to figure out, how can they use it to make their businesses run more efficiently, hopefully make more money, all the things. What do you see as some key challenges that organizations may face when trying to not only adopt AI, but adopt it responsibly and effectively?
Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges that organizations can face adopting AI. One of the ones I see most common is just not defining the problem properly and defining how you want to use it. So a lot of times, individuals are saying, hey, we're just going to use AI to use AI, or um, everybody else is doing it, so we want to do it. And they're not defining what is the actual problem and what are the outcomes that we want to help to drive with that. And so that's number one. The second area is not providing the actual training and change management plan when you implement something. And this is something I've seen just
Mhm.
a lot of times with using things like Copilot. Not that
Right,
there's anything wrong with Copilot, but people just turn it on, right? And they say, okay, now it's on in your Microsoft 360, and people are like, yes, we use AI because we turn Copilot on. And that is really just touching the surface, right? So
right.
what you need to do is you need to go in and you need to assess what are all the use cases that we could use AI? What are the top priority use cases? Where can we have the highest value? And then how do we make sure that we're implementing them, we're training the individuals, and we're measuring the results as well?
Yeah, that change management always gets people. Like, I worked for one of those organizations. They're like, "Oh yeah, you can use Copilot." That's okay, but how?
Mhm.
How can I use it to make up my job easier and better? So yeah, I think absolutely training and yeah, having the clarity, like what are we trying to get out of it? What's the plan at the end of the day, not just saying we're using AI just for the heck of it. So very smart. All right. So for the next couple questions, I wanted to switch it maybe to a little bit more personal about you.
Mhm.
With someone that has done as much as you have and accomplished a lot, I'm sure there's a lot we can learn from you. So I wanted to ask you, thinking through your experience, what's a lesson that you've learned the hard way that still influences how you lead and show up in your business today?
A lesson that I've learned the hard way. Hmm, I think one of the lessons that I've learned is how important the power of your network is. For me, I'm very much a builder, and I enjoy spending more time getting things done and
Right.
achieving versus actually going out and building maybe relationships and connections, right? I want to check things off a to-do list versus what sometimes doesn't feel like, you're making much progress, but in the end has a
Right.
lot more value. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my business and leadership is just how valuable relationships are, how
Yep.
much time it takes to maintain them, and how key relationships are to your success. And well, sometimes it doesn't seem like you can check something easily off a box, but investing people and investing in time is going to be one of the greatest aspects that you can do.
Yeah, that is absolutely the case. I can tell you my background is in HR and recruiting, and that's how people typically get jobs. Like it's their network, and it's not necessarily people that they talk to every day, but it's people that they've kept up with over the years, whether it's a coffee here and there, a quick catch up, quick text here and there. Keeping up that network, like you said, it's not maybe something that you could look at the end of your day with like your productivity check and say, oh, yep, I did that. But when you really cultivate those relationships over the year, who knows where they could lead, whether it's starting a new company, getting a new job, what have you. So I 100% agree with that. um, all right, and then a couple more. So with what you do, it's changing very rapidly. How do you stay inspired and really keep up, that momentum and the sustainability with things changing so often? Do you have any tips for us on how you stay focused and inspired?
Yeah, so for me, it's not hard to be inspired because there's so many amazing things happening. The
Right.
harder part is, though, to stay focused for sure, particularly in the technology industry. Like I said, there's always new developments and new breakthroughs. And so for me, I really try and block everything into like 3 month chunks. And
Okay.
that helps me to really say, okay, like I don't have all year, can't save everything till the last moment, but it also gives me some time for flexibility. I also
Sure.
find that a lot of the big technology releases are on kind of 3 month cycles, 3 to 6 months. And so, every kind of 3 months, popping my head above the water, being like, okay, what's changed? Is there a new tool I need to be diving into? Is there a new language? What do I need to be studying? What do I need to be doing? And then going back and putting in the work because I think that's one of the key things with AI. We're going to see the people who can actually do and get done
Right.
versus the people who can't.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I think with going in and having that 3 month, it's like, okay, it's enough time to get things done, but it's not so much time that you're missing out maybe and continuing down a path that maybe there's been a new innovation that you haven't looked into. So I like that 3 month time frame. Um, and I'm the same with you. Like there's so many new things that I just want to learn them all. But if you do that, then you don't get anything done. You just start a lot of projects and don't finish anything. So definitely like the 3 months. You mentioned tools. What's the one tech tool that you can't live without right now?
Oh, I can't live without ChatGPT. Like
Yeah.
I am addicted to it. So as I think most people are at this point,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. It's so crazy. Like it's at least for me, like I'm literally in and out of it all day long. It's hard to imagine the time before ChatGPT. Like how did we do everything before we had this really amazing tool? So yeah, ChatGPT is a huge one. ChatGPT is a huge one. Um, what about any books, podcasts, anything that you've come across lately that's super interesting? It doesn't have to be about technology or AI, just in general.
yeah, I think my favorite podcast right now is the Founders Podcast. And I would recommend this podcast to anybody who is a founder, particularly because most of the time you're going to feel crazy. You're not going to relate to many people. And there have been so many times I've listened to that podcast and just felt reassured of like, okay, I'm not insane. I'm not crazy. Like,
I love it.
yes, I had to make hard decisions. And it's a very, very lonely road,
Right.
creating the new and being a leader where you are creating the new. And so I found a lot of comfort in that podcast and hearing the stories from other founders and knowing that you're not as unique as you think, but it does feel that way because you may not know other people on the same journey as you.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I haven't heard of that one. But yeah, it's definitely a lonely road if you are starting something new. And I feel like, I don't know if this is the case for you, but a lot of times people don't live close to you. So it's not as easy to meet people in person. So um, cultivating those relationships and hearing stories about people in a similar journey to you is super interesting. So thank you for sharing that. So for people that are listening today that maybe this is the first time hearing about you and your work, what is the best way for them to follow you and learn more about your company and you as a person?
Yeah, well, I really encourage everyone to follow HMCI. So we're just hmci.ai. That's our social handle and our website. We produce a lot of good news of what's happening in the industry, and then have a really exciting trends report coming out at the end of the year. And we'll be sharing more of our research. So I really encourage everybody to follow along on that. And then for me, you can just go to sadiestlawrence.com and you'll find all the links to all my social channels and my Substack as well.
Oh, awesome. You have a Substack. Oh, cool. All right. That is super cool. So I encourage all of you to go follow Sadie and her company so you can stay up to date. The report you mentioned sounds super interesting. I'm sure we all need to be tuning into that. We can pull our heads up after our 3 month time frame and learn what's new and what's going on. So we're staying on top of everything. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sadie, for joining us today. That is all we have time for. We learned a ton, and I am super excited that you joined us. If you enjoyed today's conversation and you want more ideas and insights like this and talking to cool people like Sadie, make sure you follow our company page at Orlando Insight Group. We are always sharing cool information there, and I will see you next week.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.